Hi there. Today we're going to be taking the public transportation around Sydney Harbour. We're going to be catching a ferry from Darling Harbour or Pyrmont Bay to Circular Quay, and then from Circular Quay to Double Bay. This is a very practical way to get around Sydney Harbour. All up, the cost is about $10. We'll be catching the F4 ferry from Pyrmont Bay to Circular Quay, and then from Circular Quay on the F7 to Double Bay. So all up, about $10. Our first ferry leaves from Pyrmont Bay, which is near Darling Harbour. Darling Harbour's the tourist mecca of Sydney. Lots of sites and tourist attractions. It's a marina and bordered by the financial district, and a lot to do, a lot of hotels, a lot of places to eat. And today, middle of winter, it's a sparkling sunny day. The Sydney authorities do a pretty good job of balancing old and new. This is the old style architecture from the bridge across to Piermont. It's just a 5 to 10 minute walk from Darling Harbour across the bridge and down around past the Maritime Museum to the Pyrmont Bay ferry. Public transport in Sydney is pretty well labelled, and the green circle with the F means it's a ferry. And here's the ferry stop, nice and modern, and an easy walk from the Maritime Museum. There are lots of maritime attractions, this old sailing ship, there's some old naval vessels and a submarine, so a lot to see and do around Darling Harbour. We're not here to do that today though. We're here to take our ferry with a cheap harbour cruise. It's a very compact area, so you have the tourist district to the right, then the financial district over at Barangaroo. Here we are at the Pyrmont Bay ferry stop. Not too crowded, which is pretty normal for Sydney. So here comes our ferry. I'm impressed at the skills of the captain here. He's going to do a wheelie or a U-turn directly into the pier. These two routes, the F4 and F7, use smaller ferries compared to, for instance, the Manly ferry or the River Cat that you will see later. Not sure how many people these hold, but these are on the smaller side. There is a smaller one called the Tom Thumb, which goes from Cronulla, but this is about the smallest one that goes across Sydney Harbour. Regardless of size though, the skills of the captain are pretty good. The way he can just tuck the ferry into the pier in one single movement. So very well done. So all aboard for our cheap harbour cruise. It's going to take about 40 minutes to get around to Circular Quay, and with a couple of stops along the way. The route is very scenic. We're going to be going past the Sydney Opera House and even under it as we approach into Circular Quay. The word quay isn't very common, and many people mispronounce it as Quay. Believe me, you don't want to be laughed at. It's Circular Quay. So we're off on our way from Pyrmont Bay to Barangaroo, which is the new pier for the new financial district for Sydney. There's lots of interesting maritime history here in Darling Harbour, and also modern architecture. And it's a sparkling winter day, so a really nice day to be out on the water. These are the tourist boats that do the harbour cruises. Probably good value, but Not $10, that's for sure. So our first stop is Barangaroo. This is a pretty busy little pier. I think there's a couple of different piers here, and many of the ferries to Parramatta and elsewhere call in here. After a quick stop here, we head across Darling Harbour to Balmain East, our next stop. Splendid views of the financial district. This is a river cat. It's a very low profile ferry that goes all the way up the Parramatta River. As we leave Darling Harbour, we start to get into Sydney Harbour proper, and our first view of the coat hanger, the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It's not a huge bridge by global standards, but it holds a special place in the hearts of Australians. The stop of Balmain East serves the suburb of Balmain, which is a quaint little suburb and a lot of history. It's one of the earlier suburbs of Sydney, and this stop is just a beautiful little stop. As I mentioned before, this is a working ferry, so it's not really a sightseeing ferry, and so a lot of people in Balmain just use this to get to work during the weekdays. There's some more great views back towards Darling Harbour, and this is a working harbour, so you'll see people out fishing and everything, and you'll also see the ubiquitous river cats going backwards and forwards. After Balmain East, we head across to the North Shore, and our first stop will be Mcmahon's Point. Excellent views of the Sydney Harbour Bridge from here, and the piers in Walsh Bay and the historic Rocks District off to the starboard side. Now this stop is Mcmahon's Point, just on Lavender Bay. After Mcmahon's Point, it's a quick 5 minutes across Lavender Bay to Milson's Point. We're still on the affluent North Shore and just crossing over past Luna Park. Luna Park has quite a history, including a tragic fire on the Ghost Train in 1979. It's situated right at the northern end of the Harbour Bridge. Incidentally, the ferries connect to buses, so you can easily use the ferries in conjunction with the buses to get around Sydney. So from Milson's Point, we're directly under the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It was completed in 1932. As I said, it's not the hugest bridge, but has a special place in Australians' hearts. So this completes the first leg of our journey from Pyrmont Bay to Circular Quay. From here we are going to disembark at the pier, walk along a couple of piers and catch the next ferry, which will be the F7. With beautiful views from Circular Quay. While we're disembarking here, it's worth mentioning you don't need to buy a physical ticket. You can just use your credit card. And by that I mean you can tap on and tap off with your credit card instead of having to go to an app or anything else. Just tap your credit card on the tap on, tap off button. Here's the overall map of the ferry system for Sydney. So we've completed the F4 and now we're going to jump on to the F7 to Double Bay. So it's a quick walk along to Wharf 2. The ferries usually come into the same wharfs, but just check before you jump on. This large ferry is not ours. It's probably going to Manly or one of the other destinations. Actually, this looks like the Manly ferry, the slow ferry to Manly. It's the largest one and very popular. And this low profile one coming in looks like it's the same as the River Cat, but it's not marked the same, so I'm not quite sure where this one goes to. If you happen to know, comments down below please. Ours is coming up next. This much smaller one is the one to Double Bay. Just has about 100 odd passengers, I believe. So all aboard for our second leg of the trip from Circular Quay to Double Bay. This second leg of the trip leaves Circular Quay, goes around the promontory that the Opera House is on, past Garden Island, past the Australian Navy base, and into Double Bay. We're approaching the end of our journey to the delightful Double Bay. You could stop here for lunch. There's a couple of nice seaside restaurants here, and but it's also very close to the city, so you could just cab back or take the ferry back. So now arriving at Double Bay, and that's the end of our little sightseeing jaunt. Please remember to subscribe to my channel and hit like if you appreciate my content. It really helps me out. Thanks.